Okay. Yeah. We're live on Facebook and live on YouTube.
Hey, welcome to the party, people.
What's up,
Party
everybody?
people. Tag team back again. No, how y'all doing, man? Since y'all in there, as we further along, pull everything together. You guys are tapped into the CMCC 1080 Sim Podcast development, and we are making it happen according to how we're supposed to make it happen. Understand the environment, like we said, and we will always continue to say that this is a 432 frequency.
Right.
So for those that are chiming in right now, 432 frequency is when you take an environment. So
back up just a little bit.
You know, you always break down 432 frequency better than I do.
It is the frequency at which understanding and well, I guess
good vibes
and effective communication happen.
Yeah. Effective communication and active listening is the topic of today. It is one of the biggest barriers that we as people have on a regular basis because a lot of people do not know how to have effective communication. And one thing we must realize is that active listening is the best tool for effective communication.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would.
She agreed. I agree as well. And so one thing you need to know about active listening, if anybody is listening and you chimed in right now, if you wouldn't mind sharing what your definition of active listening is, I think that it'll help a lot of people out. It'll sure help us out, even though we have a clear idea what active listening is.
Doesn't mean we always use it.
It doesn't.
Just because you know doesn't mean you do.
And that's one of the biggest barriers that we're talking about.
Right.
We seldomly use that because a lot of the times each individual have something to say. Each person has something they want to get off their chest. Everybody has their point of views. Mm-hmm. And nobody want to share their point of views and feel it is okay, what are we saying? Mm-hmm. And we just want to help people to our best abilities understand what that looks like. And as the homies come and jump on me and let me know that they're actively participating.
Yep. Scrappy and Nelson are in the house.
Yeah, they're in the building doing what they do. So again, I appreciate y'all chiming in. And so by a show of hands, how many people have been in a situation, whether it was your workplace, family, relationship, with children, community, have all had an issue with the ability to be heard when you try and express your perspective? Show of hands. Oh, my hands went up. Dorothy's hands went up. Could you give us an example of what happened today?
I got into an argument with my sister.
Oh, interesting.
So, because I feel like I've expressed myself as many ways as I possibly can.
Right.
And that often happens, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You think there's no better way that I could say it for you to get it and then start acting accordingly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, she feels the same way. So that's where the communication breakdown happens. Because you're not really listening to me. You're trying to make your point.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's very true. And I've had that situation happen on a variety of different levels. They're not actively listening. When we ask them to be quiet sometimes, they clearly have their own point of views, and so they share accordingly. So one of the things that's important is that we want to help you understand. And like I said, we're not acting as if we're professionals. We're just people who experience and we understand a lot of the circumstances that we are faced with. A lot of our topics doesn't mean that we're coming from a legal aspect. It doesn't mean that we're coming from a certified whoever presenter aspect. Is just saying that we understand a lot of the circumstances and situations that are going on. And we just want to make clear of how do we better ourselves as a people and how do we better ourselves as a community.
It's really an active like self-study of psychology.
Very much.
And sociology.
Right? Social skills.
Trying to understand each other. I mean, that's what psychology is about. It's trying to understand yourself and how individuals work. Yeah. So, just leave it open. Huh?
3 cards.
3? Got you.
I need it.
Okay. As soon as I'm done. Sorry.
Hey, actively listening right now.
Right.
And so one of the things that I want to add to is like through the programs that I've been teaching and facilitating, one of the things that we help parents understand is like when you're engaging with your children, sometimes as a parent role, or the boss role, and it happens a lot with bosses or the managers, or especially in relationships with men. Most men try to dominate the topic of conversation, and that's not right. It's not fair. And so what the discrepancy end up looking like is that as a person talking to me, and when they're explaining something to me, I'm listening, but I'm more focused on what I'm hearing. I just want to share my spiel and share my point of view. I just want to say something. I want to add something.
Or you don't want to forget what your point is.
Right.
So you're so focused on that you forget to listen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because all the person have to say, well, if you understand what I'm saying, then feedback to me.
Yeah.
And then you'll catch a lot of people saying, all right, so what are you saying then?
Right.
Then it's like, well, dang, if you would have been listening the first time, you wouldn't have to say, well, what are you saying then?
Right.
And so that's important for us to make sure that we pay attention to what is being said. And it doesn't mean that you won't get your turn to speak. You would always have your turn to speak, the opportunity to express your thought process or your feedback to whatever the situation is. And so we want to help people understand more so what that looks like. So if I'm talking, or I'm going to switch it up. If you're talking about something, I have to be attentively listening. So I have to give you my full undivided attention as you explain or as you break down your opinions or your facts or whatever it may be. And what is important for me to do is that once you're finished talking, I'm supposed to respond to you in the form of, all right, so what you're saying is this, and this is what you want me to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way, in the process of us communicating, if I feed back what you're saying to me, it gives you an opportunity to say, no, that's not what I mean, which allows me to say, okay, well, I didn't know, and I didn't understand what was being shared with me.
Right.
So then I can furtherly say, okay, well, explain, let me know more, share more so I can be clear. And then when you express it back and then you say, so this is what you're saying, and this is the point you're trying to make. And once the person say, yes, that's what I'm saying, that's the point that I'm trying to make, then you can say, all right, so with all of that being said, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what I have to say about your statement or your concept, whatever that means. What up, bro?
Is everything okay? Okay, give me just a few minutes.
So that's where it's at. But again, like what Dorothy was saying earlier, we're so much of in a hurry to get our point across that we want to just jump in and just cut you off or undermine what it is that you're talking about. And again, I have to admit that it happens a lot in conversations with men over females or men over women, because most men, again, like we said in past videos, men believe in strength of power and domination. So they use that physical concept and approach to feel that they have the power and the seniority in the conversation. And conversation is a two-sided situation.
Right. And I think with that, I think it's men, well, like you basically said, it's a dominant thing.
Mm-hmm.
They think that their word is the last word.
Mm-hmm.
But then women think that too. So then that's where arguments ensue in relationships.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. So yes, we all do.
We do.
And that's bad.
Yeah. That's something that everybody could actively work on is really, if you just work on the listening portion, that's the most important thing. Because if you can just hear what somebody's saying and trying to grasp that point and break that point down, then the communication will kind of just open up. Arguments won't necessarily take place as easily if you just stop and grab an understanding of what the other person is saying.
Right.
If both sides could do that, then it could be a conversation rather than
altercation. Right.
Yeah.
Very much. And so, like I said, effective communication, the key ingredient to effective communication is actively listening. Take in what a person is talking about, because you might miss something trying to get your point across. And a lot of times it's not about who's right or who's wrong. Sometimes the relationships or conversations end up narrowing down to agree to disagree. And that's hard for some people, because in a situation to where you're going back and forth about a specific situation and we have to agree to disagree, some people just want to be right. And it's like, well, there's not a right or wrong in this situation. And some people just want to be validated with what they were stating as to be a complete fact. However, what I would say is that if you are in a back and forth conversation with somebody and you start to realize that this person's input and the point that the person is making is actually a fact, then you have to be willing to put your pride to the side. And that's the problem with most adults, like parents. You can have an open conversation with your kid and you start to realize that your kid is making more sense than we are. And instead of us saying, you know what, you're right, you make an actually good point. Most parents don't want to give their kids that sense of authority of actually being right in the conversation.
If they would, that would boost the kids' confidence enough to have an open conversation with their parents. Because then they know that their parents are actually hearing what they're saying and taking it serious by, acknowledging when they make a good point or when they, make a point that their parents didn't even think about, which often probably would happen if the kids could just speak. Yeah.
And we don't give them no room to speak.
Yeah.
It's even like with classrooms. Most school students, students and teachers, same type of relationship. It's always the person who thinks that they have the most authority or the most power that dominates the conversation, and that's what creates the argument ultimately in any situation. A person who think they know more, or a person who think that their point of view is right and they have all of the facts, and then you run across some people that, regardless of how many facts you put on the table, they're just like, I'm not trying to hear it. And then you as a person have to be mindful of those type of people and just eject yourself out the whole conflict, because now when you start to realize with a person who's not mature mentally to carry and conduct a effective communication process of understanding with each other, then you have to be the intelligent one to say, this ain't going nowhere, man. I'm just sitting there, basically I'm sitting there talking to a brick wall, or I'm sitting wasting my breath, nothing, which will make you get frustrated with the person and make you get upset at the person. And now you got all this hatred. A lot of the times it comes, you start to have hate for people because you feel, and then you start demising the person, calling them stupid or calling them dumb, when it's sometimes it's not the case. It's just a person that's so stuck and fixated on themselves getting what they want to get across and want you to accept what they're saying as proof of the pudding. And it doesn't necessarily boils down to that. And like I said, it's a lot of times I haven't been in a conversation to where I realized that actually ain't nobody making sense. Not me or you, due to the nature of the conversation.
It could turn out to be not so much a agree to disagree, but it could be more, it's pointless to even argue about it. Some things, especially, when it's just in the heat of the moment, whatever the situation may be, it's just an argument that you should let go. Nobody necessarily has to be right or wrong. And it's not, okay, well, we're just going to agree to disagree. It's just like, well, this is a stupid conversation to have in the first place. So that if you can step back from your feelings long enough, thank you, to, and which is what I have to work on, because that's probably why the argument ensued today. Step back from the frustration that you have. Like in my case, I don't feel like she is hearing the points that I'm trying to make everybody's life here work a little bit smoother. So if I could just calm myself down instead of sitting here, get myself all pumped up about it, and then when I approach it, it's automatic. Like it's going to be an argument because how come she's not doing this and how come she's doing this? Well, maybe it really wasn't anything. Maybe it was just that, she thought she was helping. Which now that I'm thinking about it, she probably did. So, but if we could get to that point before the argument, then things would work a lot smoother. And I think that's where a lot of people have the communication breakdowns. They get so caught up in their feelings about whatever the situation is or whatever the topic is, then they totally forget to listen, and then they forget to try to accept what the person is saying before they try to actively communicate in a argumentative way.
Very much. I would agree to that. And I found that to be a problem. Like anybody that's running programs and you're dealing with young adults, that's dope, whatever that is.
It flipped around.
Oh, never mind. It's not dope. So anybody that's working with programs and they're dealing with young adults, adolescent kids, whatever that looks like, I found it to be a problem with me a lot of times because from a person of experience now, one thing that I would advise young adults to realize, and any kid to realize, is that because you're a teenager and you're experiencing life, and I'm an adult and I understand life a little more than you do a lot of the times, because you do have some adults that is just oblivious to reality and fact of priorities, responsibilities, and just being mature. adults, I don't find myself getting into a blown out argument with somebody's kid or anybody that I feel it's not equivalent to have an intellectual conversation about a discussion that could be one had without the arguments or the aggressive approach to it. Now, it took me a minute to train myself with that habit to do so. But again, for people that run organizations and programs and you're working with young people, a lot of young people are always going to come to the table with, we don't understand. You know, they're going to, the majority of them feel like, we don't understand. You don't understand what I'm saying. You don't see where I'm coming from. And so it's my responsibility to say, all right, this is a person, this is their perspective, and this is how they're feeling. They believe that I don't understand because I'm not their age right now. And a lot of teenagers forget that, well, at one point in time in real life, we were teenagers before.
Right.
You know, and again, like I always say and share, like one of my mentors told me, he was like, Brett, there's one thing that I've done that you can't do. Just yet. And I was offended. And I was like, man, what do you mean there's something that you've done that I can't do just yet? For one, you don't know my life. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know my circumstances. You don't know my experiences. You don't know where I've been.
And you're pumping yourself up.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
You don't know me.
You don't know me, bro. So quit telling me what this and that. And then he hit me with the facts. He said, I'm 60. And I was like, oh. All right, so what do you mean? He was like, I'm 60. I have life experience. There's a lot that I've experienced in life. So if you've experienced a breakup once, I've experienced a breakup on numerous occasions. So as an adult, experiencing those things repetitively over and over again, I know how to deal with those things. So what I'm trying to share with you is a piece of experience in life of how to some kind of way deal with it if you just listen to some of the things that I'm saying. Because if a young adult take the time to hear us as adults out that experience things, if they just take the time to open their ears and hear us for a second, then they'll realize, dang, they what they're saying from their experience is what I'm experiencing right now as I'm learning and growing through life. So maybe I should just take the cotton out of my ears and put it in my mouth and just listen for a second. And the same vice versa with adults. Sometimes we got to take the cotton out of our ears and put it in our mouths, because just because we have experience over a young person, it doesn't mean that we can't be taught anything new. And it doesn't mean that we can't be educated on another level, because there's certain things in real life that young adults are experiencing that goes over our head, or we don't really focus on too much in. But when a young person break it down, it's like, oh, dang, I never seen it that way. So it's a double way conversation, communication piece if we just take the time to listen to each other.
I think with kids too, teenagers especially, in a family setting, whether it's a single parent home or whatever, once they hit adolescence and they start going through things, we've already been through it. And I think a lot of times adults dismiss how important whatever that situation is to the kid. Yeah. Because as adults, and when they become adults, they'll probably look back at it and say it was stupid or whatever. Yeah. But they're going through it right now, and they feel like that whatever that is,
it's real.
High school drama that's
reality.
So if we remember where we were, and take a step back and think about from the kid's perspective, because from our perspective, it's a totally different thing, even if we've never gone through that particular thing. But just think about the time frame, and the age has a big factor. Right. So I think that's where a lot of argument probably ensues there. Why kids don't open up to their parents, also because they either feel like they're going to be dismissed, or not taken serious, or they don't think I'm really going through anything. And then that's what gets the ball rolling. Sometimes where they end up committing suicide because they feel like they have nowhere to go, even though you still look at the situation like, well, why would they kill themselves over that? Well, it was big to them.
Yeah, very much.
And that goes for adults too. For one person to another might not seem like a big thing, but it has a different effect on people. So you have to take into consideration how somebody's feeling about the situation, not just how you're feeling about it. And I think somebody, Derek Gordon, had said to me,
"What's up, Dick?"
He said to me, "It is letting the next person speak without cutting in and having empathy for the next person in their situation without judgment." So that's pretty much the point.
That is, Derek, man, appreciate it. And Derek, you're a good dude, bro. We done connected with each other on several occasions, and honestly, to be vulnerable in our relationship, we had when we first met, it was a sense of miscommunication. We really didn't know each other, so and to a degree, we kind of didn't want to hear what each other had to say because of the scenario, the situation. But it took time for us to separate. For whatever reasons, we had to separate and then lose the communication piece with each other. And then in my world, I'm processing, I'm filtering, I'm trying to understand where a brother's coming from. Just like when Derek started to understand where I was coming from, we were able to come to a solution of communication with each other. And now we're in a predicament to where there's a lot of powerful things that we could do once we really connect the pieces together and really delve into the situation to provide solutions. And this becomes a primary solution to a lot of complicated relationships that people have, because sometimes we can feel that I can't stand this person or this person. I'll never work with this person. That's because you don't know this person, and you don't know where you guys belong in each other's lives. And until we have that communication rapport with each other and openly and effectively listen to the person speaking their piece, and we'll never know. So we really, in reality, don't know who our true friends are, who our true partners are, until we have that roundabout conversation. Because in an open conversation that we are actively listening and being able to effectively communicate with each other, we can find the jewels and the gems that are beneficial, not just to ourselves, but to a lot of people around us. And if we as people sometimes can't break those barriers of miscommunication and understand where this conversation is starting to go south at, then it hinders a lot of people. So it takes practice from one group to demonstrate it and implement it to other group. But what I do want to take it back to a little bit is what you were saying too about kids and their experiences of what they're going through. Well, sometimes I look at a breakup and say, I at one point in time, I'll be like, breakup, your girlfriends, man, get over that. I would be quick to say that, but then I had to realize that when I was 15, 16 years old and my girlfriend broke up with me and I seemed to talking to another dude, I was crushed. I wanted to fight a dude. I wanted to fight anybody that said anything about her. I wanted to fight anybody that said anything about how I was feeling.
No effective communication.
No effective, I ain't listening to nothing. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Ain't nobody got no good input. I don't care what you've experienced. What you experience is different than mine. And a lot of the times it's true, And so, like you said, we have to give ourselves that open space to hear a person out, because your experience is not my experience. And the way I process things is a lot different than the rest of other people that processes things. And so having that empathy, like you're saying, having that empathy towards a person's experience and expression is very important on a mature person's part and a mature person's angle of a communication solution or barrier. Because if we don't take in consideration how we should listen to the person and say, and don't do the sarcastic stuff. Okay, like when you listen to somebody, you're like, all right, get your point across. Get your point across. All right, is you done yet? All of that stuff, that just puts more toxic situations into, because I'm not trying to talk to nobody who's being sarcastic with me.
And that's when arguments turn into.
Oh man, because the person ain't stupid. We know what our sarcasm is.
Because we've been arguing about something totally different.
Yeah.
We're just arguing about how you're talking to me right now.
So for real.
Yeah.
So for real.
It's hard to put your feelings aside when the situation is happening now and you want to have the conversation and try to get it over with right now. Sometimes, like you said, with you and Derek, you need time apart.
Yeah.
And whether that means you got to go your separate ways for a while, or you just go take a walk and calm down and then come back and see what happens. But I think the biggest thing is being able to put your own feelings aside while you're listening to the person.
Yeah, very much.
Try to understand their feelings.
Right.
And then try to communicate your feelings without lashing out in arguments and all that. And I know I have to work on that because I just know.
And it's another key factor, knowing yourself.
Right.
If you know who you are, what type of person you are, and if you know there's a lot of things that you should be working on, then you could potentially be the reason why a lot of arguments ensue. So without knowing who you are and knowing your strengths and your weaknesses in a conversation, then you could, again, be the issue. Like what Bendo just said, effective communication consists of watching our implicit biases, being reflective, being reflective, understanding intent versus impact, knowing that everyone has a communication type, most importantly, actively listening.
Right.
Everybody has a communication type. Shout out to Bendo. Appreciate you for that, bro. Because everybody do have a communication type.
Yeah.
Some people like to talk through doing something for you. You know, that's an act of communication. So if we was doing something wrong, or I said something wrong, or it was an argument, that somebody probably want to bring me something to say their apologies.
Right.
Their apologies might be cooking you dinner. Apologies might be getting you something that they knew you were from the store. And don't blow that off as, don't give me this to try to end the argument or try to stop the, accept that person's form of communication to try to make amends of where they feel they were wrong at. Because if a person come and bring you something after an argument is ensued, or if a person does something for you after an argument that took place, then that's a person admitting that at some point in that conversation that they were wrong. So they're going to try to do their best to make it up,
Right.
you know? And so allow that person to do that. It doesn't necessarily mean that the conversation shouldn't pick back up, but then it's understanding how do we reapproach the situation
Right.
to have a healthy conversation, because there's no issue that you ever come across, especially with people that care about or people that you work with. You can't just say, done here, cut it out. It's a full-blown argument going on, and you just walk your way and walk your way. It's not going to rectify anything.
Yeah.
It's being able to go your separate ways, come back, and at some point put the nail in the coffin and bury the whole situation altogether.
And don't, after you've communicated all you can communicate about the situation, you got the apologies out or whatever has to happen. 10 years later,
Oh yeah.
don't bring it up and say, well, remember what you said? Because it's over now.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
That's big.
Yeah.
That's big. Remember when you
because you can forget, but you ain't gonna
can
forget.
forget, yeah.
So you pulling all the punches at that point when you're getting into an argument about something that has nothing to do with that.
Yep.
And yeah, sorry is a hard thing
Yeah.
for everybody to say.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know what it is, but that's why I think a lot of people, like men, will go just buy flowers,
Yeah.
and some candy.
Because they don't want to say sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Learn to
And-
say sorry.
And they
man.
might not think they're sorry.
Yeah.
They might just think, well, I'm gonna make her think I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna hush her up by doing this.
Right.
This ought to hush her up.
Right.
And it's not right.
No.
Because sometimes, and again, like when we go back to how we originally started this off about men demising women and overbearing to women, that's our biggest flaw as men. That's one of our biggest flaws. We want to be the dominant, even if we don't want to have the last word.
Yeah.
It's our approach of how we go about doing it. We want to have the last word just because we say it's law. And again, my biggest thing is, if you can't beat me up, then quit trying to talk slick with me. Don't go back and forth with me if you can't put the hands on me. So that used to always give me an edge to where I feel like, again, just because if I can beat you up, then I'm gonna say what I want to say, and you don't got no room to say anything.
Right.
And then I started thinking that a person can catch you slipping and crack in your head with something and get your mind right. So let me refrain from thinking I'm the toughest person in the situation of the conversation, and
Especially when you're emotional.
expect. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Anything can happen when you're emotional.
Because you go flying off the handle, you just sit and wait for an opportunity.
Now they didn't went quiet on you because they plot. They ain't just giving you a platform. They're like, okay, yeah, if you think you got this conversation, I'm gonna let you do so.
Yep.
And that's why it's not healthy to not resolve a situation. And again, you can resolve the situation if we both just agree to disagree. But that takes a healthy conversation, a communication piece too. Because when you agree to disagree, that means we didn't exhausted all of the solutions. I didn't share my spiel, you shared your spiel. It doesn't seem to be meshing and making difference. Like that car's not being actively communicated with us because maybe we didn't tell him we was over recording. But he should know better. He should know somebody's recording something somewhere. Being mindful of your surroundings. And knowing our implicit biases, like Bendo was saying, and knowing empathy when you're having a conversation with somebody, and knowing that the process of women and throughout the process of life has always been undermined and oppressed by us as demeanor and overpowering and overbearing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
See, active listening. She was hearing what I was saying and she pulled it from me. So to make sure it's clear. So in overbearing person's views, and so we need to stop that. We need to check ourselves. And it's not that we're treating women like kids when we're like, okay, let me be sensitive to your needs and be sensitive to your hearing, what you want to say. I'm not going to do none of that, but I am going to be mindful of, this is a woman, she got something to say and I want to hear what she's going to say. And I would just hope that if you sharing information with me as I'm actively listening, because when I listen to stuff, I'm listening for what you're saying and I'm listening how you did, because a lot of time communication is right?
Yeah.
And so I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm listening to how you say it. So if I do rebuttal, because we have room to rebuttal in any communication, I got positioned to, okay, since you said that, and since I'm gonna share with you what I believe I heard you saying,
Right.
and the moment you say, that's exactly what I'm saying. And then when I say, okay, so on that note, this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm feeling. I don't need you to say, and you try to be defensive. Just hear me out as well.
Yeah.
And then regurgitate what I just said, so that way you can get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And in that situation, if we can't come to no resolution to things, then it's like, okay, well, let's not argue about it, and let's not hold no grudges.
Yep.
Let's just nip this in the bud and move forward. And if you're in a relationship, don't just move forward and be like, and now you're bitter towards each other, because that's not healthy. Y'all should just get out of the relationship.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah.
If you can't let it go.
Right.
And that too is a big thing. Like, well, like I was saying before, letting stuff go, or being able to agree to disagree,
Mm-hmm.
and really agree to disagree and move forward. I think it depends on the relationship, how effective agreeing to disagree is.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're in a relationship, I guess it depends on whatever the situation is or whatever the topic is that you can't agree on, because at that point there's a decision that needs to be made.
Mm-hmm. Very much.
Is it something that you can live with or not?
Mm-hmm.
But like just in everyday life, with friends and family, there's always going to be a situation where you're going to agree to disagree, because that's how we that's how we live.
Right.
Nobody is going to have the same exact mindset as you, even though you wish they would, because that would make life so much easier.
Very much.
But it's just not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to learn how to communicate around that, around the fact that everybody has their own opinions and has their own feelings about certain things. And, you can sit and debate and try to convince and do all that. But if it's becoming an argumentative thing and it's a problem, then you need to step back and look at what am I doing? Am I demanding too much from people? Because you probably are.
You probably are, yeah.
And they might be demanding too much of you.
Right.
So then there's a whole other conversation that has to happen.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say everything that Bill just said. He said, that's why I tell my youth that 1 to 5 seconds of emotions can take away years or all of your life.
Yep.
And that is very true, So being mindful of that piece. And another thing that I encourage people to not do is that if you don't agree with something, don't just agree with it to kill the conversation, because then you'll be upset at that person still, because you never got your point across, and you're just doing it. And once you agree with somebody, then it gives them the sense to say, see, when I'm always right. So you got this person in these false pretenses to believe that every time y'all have a conversation and it start to go south and it start to get aggressive, then you just agreed, and a person would always feel like they're one-upping on you, but you allowed that situation to take place. So if you don't agree with something, then just don't agree with it, and don't just follow in and I want to just kill the noise, because in your heart you still won't be settled, and you'll still always live this person in a way that you get on nerves, you know what I'm saying? Or I really can't stand you.
That's an important point for relationships.
Very much.
Because at the very beginning, you like each other, and you want to have something work out and something new and all that. So you're like, okay, I'll go along with that. I'll go along with that too.
Right.
Because she's the best thing ever, or whatever, and then, a couple months down the line, you're tired of playing.
Going along, right?
Like, now you got to be a fake person, because... And then arguments, and that's happened to me. Because then arguments ensue, and it's like, well, I put it out there exactly what it was that I needed to say to you, and what I was looking for, what I wasn't looking for. It's not my fault that you said that was cool.
Yeah, all of a sudden now it's new you, and then you're like, well, this has always been me. Well, it's new to me.
Yeah, because that's not what you said before. So always you got to be yourself, but you have to be aware of how you're communicating and how you're listening to people. But yeah, like you said, don't go along with stuff just to end the argument. Just learn how to communicate.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
And again, that's the topic of our subject today. Effective communication is built on actively listening to one another. And we have to start getting into the habits of doing that. And when we've been conditioned for so long to not be actively listening, then that's a skill that you have to develop.
Yeah.
And like with anything that you have to develop, it's going to take time. It's going to take practice. It's going to take repetitiveness. You're going to have to be consistent with doing it. And you can start practicing right now. If you're a parent with child or children, next time they come and talk to you about something, hear them out.
Yeah.
Because they may just be making a point that you probably need to hear them out on, and you could probably agree with on what it is they want to do and why they want to do it.
Yeah.
And even relationships, a lot of relationships are going to keep crumbling if you agree just to agree to the situation, or if you're not hearing each other out. Because at some point, somebody's either making a point or nobody's making any point. And if somebody's making a point and we're actively listening, then we can go with the thing that states the facts versus our opinions. Because if there's opinions and facts on the table, then I don't want to solidify anything, and I don't want to go and be firm on an opinion. I'd rather be firm and confident on the fact, even if it's not my fact is being corrected at the table or bringing sense to the situation. If I'm wrong, I am to the point to where now, if I'm wrong about something, I can admit it. I can admit when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
My biggest challenge is having communications with people that can't admit when they're wrong.
Yeah.
But like I said a few clicks ago, if you're having a conversation with somebody who doesn't just admit their guilt or their fault in any situation, I have to be the mature person and realize that if this is how this is right now, then it has the potential to be like this as long as we're together, as long as we're friends. So I got to know when to cut my ties and to cut myself loose from this situation or relationship or job in that matter, you know, because just because you're my boss and you're paying my bills, you're not going to Burger King me.
Right.
And that means you're not going to just have it your way. Just letting you know. I'm going to just distance myself from that situation and find something better, because I want to be in healthy relationships. I want to be in healthy business relationships. I want to be in healthy communities and friendships. And, you know, it's just the bottom line.
So don't sacrifice yourself for what may be a temporary situation.
Right. You heard what she said. Don't
Even if it's a
sacrifice
long-term
yourself.
situation, don't sacrifice yourself. Because going back to the point that I just made too, if you can't live with the person the way they are, with the opinions that they have and the morals that they have and whatever the situation, then that's when you need to look at, well, maybe we should go our separate ways. But don't go into a situation saying, well, you know, that's not such a big deal, I could deal with that, you know, or saying, well, just for the sake of not arguing, I'm just gonna go ahead and agree. Because then you start sacrificing yourself, and it's gonna be a continuous thing, because now you're trying to put up a front.
Very much.
And then it's for yourself. It's not nothing for the other person, because now you're just basically lying to them.
Yeah.
So that's total communication breakdown.
Right. You're not doing nobody justice by lying.
No. No.
And you dang sure not doing them justice by agreeing with them just to get it over with.
Nope.
They ain't helping nobody. So to all mature adults, develop that skill. To all people, develop that ability to listen and hear people out, because everybody has a voice and we all want to be heard, and we all have our opinions. And to anybody who wants to share their opinion, make sure that you're willing to hear other people as much as you want people to hear you. Make sure you're willing to understand where a person is coming from by listening literally to what they're saying and how they're saying it. And if you're wrong, then just say, you know what, you're right. And don't be sarcastic when you do it just because you're wrong. Just be like, you know, you're right. Seriously, I agree with you. This is where I went, and explain where you went wrong. Because a lot of people are like, I don't have to explain myself. If you're in a relationship, you have to explain yourself.
Yeah.
This is some explanation got to be. It's some explaining got to be done. You know, and if you know you have a problem with anybody else, there's a lot of people that you don't have to explain yourself to. Facts. But if you're in a constant relationship with somebody, or friendship with somebody, or bonded with somebody on any type of level of commitment,
and you try to keep that going,
right, you have to do some explaining.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid of explaining yourself, because if they are worth it, then they are worth your explanation, and they're worth your time to give them the details, so that way they fully understand what you're talking about and what point you want to make.
Yeah.
That's my spiel.
I actively listened, and I think I actively communicated, or effectively communicated.
Yeah. I would say the same thing.
Learn, I gotta go do that with my sister now.
So with that being said, Simpson sees the movement, change media, change culture, 1080, youth, adult, child, collaboration. We all work together. Purple Style
Productions.
You heard her.
The Rekisto. By the way, I should run it out here. I got my registered trademark for the Rekisto. So
That's what I'm talking about.
Just in case anybody's out there wondering, you can get the official Record Store stuff at officialrecordstore.com.
Yeah, I'm liking that. The official Record Store.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and it's record with W. Oh.
Yep. Black folks should know. If they don't, they better figure it out.
Come on now, you gotta figure this out. You have to know.
Record stuff.
So that's our time. We'll end up posting what our next topic is going to be next Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, in between time, go and practice effective communication by actively listening to your significant other or your loved ones or people that you care about.
Mm-hmm.
Practice it. Try it right now. You know, try with your kids, especially try with your kids, and give them some type of empowerment, man, to say something on their mind and in their heart so they don't feel like they go unheard and everybody, like you said, dismissing them.
Right.
And blowing them off. You're just kids. You don't really know nothing.
Right. The kids are smart.
Kids are heck of smart. And they're not trying to hear that.
Mm-mm.
And the more they hear it, the more they feel lesser than.
Yeah.
And it puts them into this clammy shell. And you always ask them, well, what's the matter?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, you're the matter.
Right.
You're the problem.
How come you never talk to me?
What?
Yeah.
You don't ever want to listen to me. So why should I talk to you?
That's one point too I want to make real quick.
Yeah.
Part of communication is knowing when to shut up.
Oh, come on now.
Sometimes you just need to stop. Because it ain't gonna go
nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that. They gonna say you gotta know when to zip it. If you ever understand it, go watch Master of Disguise. This is what you're doing. This is what I want you to do. Any questions? Yes, I want you to stop talking for a second.
I'm not sure I understand.
Siri don't get it.
She actively listening. She wants some explanation to go on.
Wow.
So I'm with that. And that's right. That's my time, man.
All right. So next week we will post our next subject within the day. Well, yeah, within the day.
Figure
it out.
We'll have it out there for you guys. No, we appreciate y'all tapping in and chiming in with us.
Yep.
And spending your time in. Appreciate everybody that came in here and shared something.
Let's see, Danica was in here, Ben was in here, and Derek.
Okay. So, and there'll be some people that chime in later on. So
share this video too.
Yeah, please do. If you're actively listening to us, you would share this video effectively.
Right.
Right. All right.
All right. We'll see y'all next week.
All right. Peace out.
And that's Scrappy.
What up, Scrappy?